Good evening, folks, and welcome to Tuesday night live stream. Hope you're all very well. Hope you had a nice weekend. Oh my goodness, what are we going to talk about tonight? It's Donald Trump wall to wall. No, not wall to wall, but pretty much. It's insane. It's insanity layered upon insanity. So without further ado, let's start with this. So Donald Trump is claiming here that he received a gift from Iran. Okay, so we're going to talk about Donald Trump, of course. Talk about AI as well. North Korea. Donald Trump acting a bit like North Korea. Advance UK. I want to cover a story on Advance UK. Electricity prices, and of course what the government is doing in regards to the economic impact of the war in Iran. Although, according to Donald Trump, the war in Iran is over, sort of. It was won, but he's done a deal with the Iranians, or maybe not. It's all over the place, but let's have a listen to this.
It was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. It was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but it was a very significant prize. And they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it, so that meant one thing to me: would deal with the right people.
Was that nuclear related?
No, it wasn't nuclear related. It was oil and gas related, and it was a very nice thing they did. But what it showed me is that we're dealing with the right people. Because, it was amazing, actually.
God. Okay, so according to Donald Trump, Iran gave him a huge present, massive present. We don't know what it is. We're not allowed to know what it is, but it's a present from Iran. Look, I think what he's trying to do here is he's attempting to convince the Iranians to give him something. And maybe this was how the Iranians should have dealt with this from the very beginning. They should have gave him a big, I don't know, gold statue of something, or an airplane, or a golden toilet or something. They should have given him something made of gold, and then Donald Trump would have said, yeah, we're not going to go to war with you. That's what the Iranians should have done. Instead, what they did was they tried to deal with the Trump administration as if they're adults. They tried to respect them, it seems, when it came to the negotiations. The Iranians sent qualified negotiators. Donald Trump sent two real estate guys. So that was the problem there. They should have sent their own real estate guys to negotiate with Donald Trump's guys. A statue of spun sugar, spray painted gold. He's just babbling. Grandpa's off his meds. Yeah, but it seems to be every day it's something more insane. Yesterday he was talking about how he had negotiated something with the Iranians, and then the Iranians came back and said, no, there was no negotiation. Yesterday he also said that he and the Ayatollah would share ownership of the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians are not going to go along with that. Although the Iranians are making their own offers. They're saying, look, if you want, we can stop this, but we want compensation because our infrastructure has been destroyed. We want reparations. We want to have a situation where we're allowed to have at least a civilian nuclear energy system. But the only present Donnie managed to give was to Putin, the high oil price. Yeah, prices was the present to Putin. To Putin, yes. Putin has benefited greatly from this war because, as we know, when oil prices go up, Russia makes money because Russia is selling a lot of oil. Lower oil prices would be damaging for Russia, of course, and their economy is on their knees. Now, in the short term, Russia benefits. In the long term, I don't know how good this is for the Russian economy. No pussyfooting around Trump is insane. America, what the F are you waiting for? Coup now. I am not suggesting there should be a coup, but I'm just reading out the comment, of course. I'm surprised there hasn't been some sort of real pushback from even within his administration. There was one guy who resigned. One guy. That was it. One guy who resigned. I don't think everyone in the Trump administration is insane. I think they're grifters. they've realized, hey, look, we can make a lot of money if this guy is in charge. All we have to do is go to him and say, hey, can you tweet something about, a peace deal in 5 minutes? Because I want to I want to buy a load of shares, or I want to sell a load of shares, and I want you to tweet about it, but just wait 5 minutes. Okay, do it now. And then these people make huge amounts of money, and that's exactly what's been happening over the last few weeks. And of course, when it came to the tariffs, the same thing. Donald Trump would say, yeah, I'm going to impose tariffs, and then the stock market takes a hit, and then Donald Trump says, I've changed my mind, I'm going to remove the tariffs, and then the stock market goes back up again, and just goes up and down like a yo-yo. And the same with the oil price, up and down, and this is going to create massive problems in the long term, because what the US seem to be doing as well is they're artificially keeping the price of oil down by releasing reserves. But when those reserves run out, or they become critically low, then the price of oil is going to go straight up, and no amount of speculating is going to no amount of speculation is going to bring it down. It's always been about money, yes, and this seems to be the whole thing about the Donald Trump administration. And this is a word of warning for people in particular in the UK when it comes to Nigel Farage, because Nigel Farage wants to have exactly the same thing. He wants to have exactly the same type of administration. Him being, respected as some sort of cult figure in number 10, the media pandering to him. And then, of course, the people around him will be there because of loyalty or because they donated to Reform UK. Farage has already said that he's willing to have a cabinet without politicians in it. So I've mentioned before how that could be a good thing if it's done right, but we're talking about Nigel Farage here. And of course, he will surround himself with people who are likely donors to Reform UK. And you give money to Reform, we get into power, we'll give you something in return. In the same way as Donald Trump took huge donations from the tech sector, from the fossil fuel industry, and then as soon as he's in power, he gives them something in return. And there are people making shitloads of money because of tweets that Donald Trump puts out, because of his rantings about, yeah, we have peace, and then we're going back to war, and then we'll have peace again. It's insane. And it's undermining trust in politics. It's undermining trust in institutions as well. Anyway, on the other side of that, I'll get back to Donald Trump a little bit later, but I wanted to cover this story here. Chancellor on war contingency plans. So it says here, Chancellor Rachel Reeves has said contingency planning is underway for emergency bill support amid growing economic fallout from the war in Iran.
I can confirm to the House that contingency planning is taking place for every eventuality, so that we can keep costs down for everyone and provide support for acting within our ironclad fiscal rules to keep inflation and interest rates as low as possible. Mr. Speaker, this is not a war that we started, nor is it a war that we joined, unlike the advice of the parties opposite. But it is a war that will have an impact on our country. The challenges may be significant, but I promise to do what is right and fair, being responsive in a changing world and responsible in the national interest. And I commend this statement to the House.
Okay, so she's right about the parties opposite, in particular Reform and the Conservatives, who were, saying, hey, you need to get involved because Donald Trump wants us involved, so we have to do exactly what Donald Trump wants. She was right. The Labour government were completely correct not to get involved in that. It was an absolute disaster. It is an absolute disaster. It's an ongoing absolute disaster. So it was right for the government not to support Donald Trump in this misadventure. But when it comes to, you notice the language here, she said, look after those most in need, or the most vulnerable. So it gives the impression that this would be targeted support, not universal support, which of course, as we know, is a problem because some people will not get the support even though they need it. And on the other side, some people will get the support even though they don't. But it makes more sense to have a universal support to bring down the cost of energy bills in particular, because while the war may be getting close to an end, I think, maybe, perhaps, on the other hand, the energy price is still remaining high, and the instability means that prices are going to remain high for some time. Why didn't the Chancellor implement emergency measures as soon as they got into office? You were right, Max. I honestly don't know why they didn't do this. I had said back in 2024, it was a mistake to base everything on growth. And at the time, I'm not blowing my own trumpet here, it's logical. I was saying, look, you can't predict the future. You have no idea what's going to come down the road. At the time when they got into power, there was still the war in Ukraine raging, and it's still raging. So when they said we're gonna work towards growth is going to result in more money for public services, I said this was a mistake, because you're not in control of factors outside the UK economy. And what happened in November of that year, Donald Trump got elected, and what did Donald Trump say he was going to do? He's going to impose tariffs. So you can't focus only on growth. You need to focus on rebuilding public services. And at the time I said, if you focus on rebuilding public services, you can borrow in order to achieve that. You can increase taxes in order to achieve that. But that needs to be your goal, because you can go back to your constituents and say, look, I'm sorry we have to increase taxes, or I'm sorry we have to borrow more, but it's in order to fund public services. That is our goal, to rebuild the state. But the idea of, well, we're going to have the fastest growing nation in the G7, that's not something that benefits ordinary people. But fully funded public services does. Makes more sense to focus on rebuilding public services than focusing on growth or the fastest growing nation in the G7. Once again, the fastest growing nation in the G7 means nothing to somebody who's struggling to get by. But fully funded public services, for example, when it comes to welfare, making sure that people are lifted out of poverty, that benefits them. To hell with fastest growing nation in the G7. Can't drive anything and pump petrol if you can't afford to eat and heat. Alder Cables open calling for World War III. Thoughts? Alder Cable. I'm not sure who Alder Cables is. Is it somebody on the chat, or is it somebody else? Unless you mean Alistair Campbell, but I don't think he's doing that. Cap food costs. There needs to be. There are two things here. First of all, there's this war which is creating massive amount of instability. And we know that when it comes to fertilizer costs, they're going through the roof, which will make it more expensive, make food, the cost of food more expensive. It's going to drive up the cost of food. So this is going to be something that the government need to take into account. And they need to put in measures to protect people from rising food prices. This could make or break the Labour government. You know, we could actually see, if this thing goes on for a long time, and if the government are not able to handle it correctly, we could see early elections. And we know what the result of that would be. The only people who would benefit from that would be to a lesser extent the Greens, and to a greater extent Reform UK. And Reform UK are doing pretty well in the polls. It would be a wonderful opportunity for reform if there was an election. I'm not saying that there will be an election, but it depends on a number of factors. If the government are not able to improve the situation for ordinary people ASAP, then there will be calls for them to, there'll be votes of no confidence in the government. There'll be calls for Keir Starmer to resign. We still have to wait for the May elections. They're just around the corner, but they really need to make sure that people are protected from these extra costs. You know, once again, you have politicians who are on pretty good salaries who don't feel the cost of living crisis, focusing on something else, and they really need to focus on this. The cost of living crisis, it's been something that's been really an issue that hasn't gone away, truly hasn't gone away since COVID. And And the government seem to be avoiding talking about it. You're absolutely correct, Max. You're absolutely right, Max. Correct. I've noticed the food bank donations have gone down. That's another problem. Is like more people are reliant on food banks, but because more people are reliant on food banks, fewer people are able to donate to food banks because they're more reliant, because they're cutting back themselves, and this of course puts more pressure on food. I keep saying food banks should not exist, in the sense that the government should lift people out of poverty. The government have the resources necessary. If they want to do it, it's a political choice not to invest more in people. You know, I've mentioned before a UBI, and once again, I think we're getting closer and closer to a situation where we'll need a UBI. Jobs are becoming more and more difficult to get. Good paying, safe employment is extremely rare at the moment. And with advancements in technology, we're going to see a push towards something like a UBI or something similar. Nicole, great to see you on the stream tonight. We've had 16 times self-sufficient. We are 16 times self-sufficient in fish. Capitalists will never allow these changes. We need proper social controls. I'm going to cover a story a little bit later in the stream about rent, in particular in Northern Ireland, and something needs to be done about that as well. I'm lamenting the idea that you have more and more people flocking to Rupert Lowe, who's basically a neo-aristocrat. He's presenting himself as I'm here for ordinary people. But in reality, he's an aristocrat, a sort of aristocrat, and he's there for fellow aristocrats. That's Scotland, Max. Just be a Reform MP, grifter, easy money. Yes, I swear to God, if I switched to the right and I started talking about immigration and stop the boats and all of this, I'd probably become a millionaire. It's easier if you're on the right. The unions need to stand up and fight. Where have the unions been? We need another. Damn it, what's his name? Mick Lynch. We need another Mick Lynch. Mick Lynch needs to be dragged out of retirement and he needs to be stuck on Sky News again. He done a wonderful job. But it's strong, powerful trade unions there to protect workers. That's what's necessary, especially at this time where we're seeing more and more jobs go as a result of AI, but also companies are finding ways to make savings, as they would call them, cuts. And of course, they're laying people off as it's the easiest way. It would be so easy to just become right-wing and make bad faith arguments against immigration. Yes. Yes, you would not believe. And I think a lot of them are grifters. I don't think they all believe the things that they say. What I worry, Max, is that people will have to work for a UBI in the future. Well, a UBI is, by definition, you shouldn't have to work. It's universal for everyone, and there are no conditions related to it. But the problem with the UBI at the moment is that we should be implementing it now, but governments are afraid to implement it because they're afraid that they're going to face a massive backlash politically. And many people don't understand the UBI. And that's why I try to talk as much as possible about it. I'm not going to do the whole live stream on it. Mandy's asking for a UBI live stream. Maybe we should do that. But it's about informing people as to what it is, because there's so much misinformation around it or ignorance around it. And politicians are afraid to talk about it. What's his name? Zach Polanski is one of them that was talking about about a UBI. But most politicians are afraid to touch it because it's misunderstood as being some sort of welfare, but it's not welfare. It's providing people the basics to survive. And we need to have this, because if jobs start to disappear, and jobs are disappearing at the moment, then people will need to be able to pay the bills. If they're not paying the bills, if they're not able to feed their families, then they're going to riot. So it's in the government's interest, it's in politicians' interest to start talking about this. Mandy is right. UBI livestream, Max. Labour could surprise themselves if they were to implement a UBI. I think that I would fully support them. And I think if they were to implement a UBI, they would be extremely popular. But unfortunately, I think they're either ignorant of what a UBI is, or they're afraid of what the idea of implementing one. The problem with the UBI is that you have to implement it early, because if you do it late, then the damage has already been done, and you're trying to fix a problem when it's out of control. It makes more sense to implement it beforehand and then avoid the problem. But politicians don't want to take they don't want to take proactive action. They want to take reactive action. So they want to wait until things are on fire before calling the fire brigade, instead of making sure that the fire doesn't start in the first place. And a UBI would avoid that fire. I'm not saying it would be easy. I'm not saying that it would be something simple to implement, but start out with a number of pilot projects. Start off with a small amount of money. 50 quid a month. Just start out giving people 50 quid a month. Implement it, it would be easy to do that. It wouldn't cost a huge amount of money. But if you start doing that, then people get used to, every month you get 50 quid from the government. That's great. And then you can start to increase it as the situation gets more and more difficult. But you need to start with something. But they don't even want to do that. Housing, jobs, healthcare, welfare, education. Those are the priorities of most people. Remember when Hannity cherished the elderly? Humanity cherished the elderly. We know that Killer. I'm not sure about the down south. I'm not sure what that's. What I worry, Max, is the people will have to work for a UBI in the future. Don't give the feckers ideas. Forcing people to don a high vis and carry a brush to qualify for a UBI. No, the qualification for UBI is completely against the idea of a UBI. 50 quid will do nothing. The problem isn't simply a universal money, it's capitalism. If we don't address that, then a UBI will become a SOP. You're right, Martin, or Martina, sorry. You're right. But it has to start somewhere. And what you're suggesting, you're not suggesting it, but what you're hinting at maybe is that the system will have to break before there's a real change. And I would hope that we could avoid something like that, because if the system has to break, then there's a real risk that many people will suffer. And I prefer people not to. Maybe what's on the other side will be much better. But I truly hope that there's a way of implementing something much better without having to go through a huge amount of difficulty. Anyway, guys, let's move on to another story here in relation to this. The system is already broken. Cobra, what help is Starmer proposing for Brits amid the Middle East war? Well, this is Sam Coates.
An emergency meeting about the economic shock caused by Iran. Keir Starmer has just been meeting senior cabinet figures and the Bank of England governor over the consequences of what's going on in the Middle East. We know what was discussed behind closed doors because he's told senior MPs before the liaison committee. He said he's looking at giving support to households for their energy bills all the way through to the end of the year, something we didn't know before.
Obviously, we're looking at, in the first instance, at what happens when the current price cap ends, which is the end of June. I think the one we're equally focused on is the one after that.
So that's support for households, but help for businesses, well, that could take longer. Asked about the interruption to things like the supply of gas through the Strait of Hormuz, the Prime Minister said this.
It's a little bit early to be too concrete, if I'm honest, because we don't know yet how much longer this is going to go on.
But Keir Starmer was clear, you're not going to get help on the scale that Liz Truss offered during her brief premiership.
I'm acutely aware of how much it cost last time round, and I'm acutely aware of the state of the public finances. But we will look this afternoon at...
Just a side note, do you know that it was actually Ed Miliband who had suggested that the government intervene and provide support for people? Remember when Liz Truss... This was not the mini budget, it was before the mini budget. Liz Truss was talking about providing people with support to cover energy bills. I don't know if she actually went through with it, because then the Queen died. And then it sort of was all mothballed, I think, or it was put to one side. But there was a plan to provide a huge amount of money for people who are struggling, of course, to cover energy costs. When Liz Truss was Prime Minister for 5 minutes. But this was actually a plan that was being put forward by Ed Miliband. And Liz Truss thought it was a good idea, and it was a good idea. So maybe something like that could be done again.
What the appropriate approach is.
But reminded that electricity costs 4 times the amount as gas, he did say he was open to the idea of putting electricity levies onto general taxation.
I've been looking at specifically how we can do that for reasons that you will understand. We need to bring the price of electricity down, and we will. And there are a number of possible ways of doing that, but we will do it.
Also coming soon, more powers for the competition watchdog to crack down on profiteering companies. But could all companies benefiting from the surge in prices also face a windfall tax, as suggested by his cost of living czar?
We are looking at measures to deal with profiteering. I've already asked the CMA to look at this. I think we might look at what further teeth we can give to.
Okay, well, they need to do something because, as was pointed out in chat here, petrol, diesel just went up 10p in my local petrol stations. 10p. That's in Scotland. £1.44 a litre at the pumps. Liz Truss got mothballed. The shit hit the fan. Yes. £1.50 petrol, £1.72 diesel. It's but Donald Trump said the war is over. But the prices keep going up. It's interesting that the price of oil goes up dramatically, and within the same day the price of petrol and diesel goes up. And then when the price of oil comes down, even if it's dramatically, it slowly over about a week or two comes down at the petrol stations. I don't know why that's the case. That could be something that the regulator could look into, why that happens. Once again, it's stuff that we've had on storage, we bought maybe a month ago. We need to jack up the price straight away because there's a war on. When will Donald Trump be over? 2028 allegedly. 2028 allegedly. It's over in his head, like every fucking thing else. Everything fucking else. Yes. I don't know if you guys saw the beginning of this live stream where Trump was talking about he received a big, beautiful gift from Iran.
CMA to deal with this.
Keir Starmer was talking hours after Donald Trump's proposed ceasefire, but the Prime Minister isn't expecting things to necessarily change soon.
I think all of our focus and energy has to be in the swift de-escalation, but we've got to plan on the basis that it could go on for some time.
But the spiciest bit of the committee meeting was an exchange on defence spending. When is the government going to set out its plan? Keir Starmer said it was on his desk now, but admitted the UK wouldn't be on a war footing until he'd finally announced it.
Why is it not on a war footing now?
Because the strategic review commits us to a war footing, and we now need to put the funding in place in order to get there.
We're less than a month into the Iran conflict, but the government already preparing its second package of support.
look, when it comes to a war footing or whatever, the government doesn't, like the military, the armed forces are completely stretched. The armed forces doesn't have the equipment it needs for a number of reasons. Well, the main reason is that they haven't had proper investment over the last number of decades, including when this guy, Brexiteer, what's his name, Bernard Jenkins, when his party were in power, they decided we're not going to invest in the military. We're not going to give them more money. We're not going to increase the size of the armed force. We're actually going to reduce the size of the armed forces. So he's in no position to criticize the Prime Minister. The government probably need to invest more in defense. Look at what's happening around the world. And the fact that Donald Trump is, it seems, pulling the United States out of NATO, at least when it comes to Europe, then it means that the UK and other European countries are going to have to spend more on defense. This is the reality. We don't know what's coming down the road. And we have to, when I talk about spending more on defense, it doesn't necessarily mean ships and tanks and aircraft. It can also be cyber defense, training up people who can operate defensive measures, investing in AI, things like that. That's also defense spending. But it also involves, of course, building ships and tanks and aircraft. But they're the more expensive pieces of equipment. It's the cheaper stuff is actually some of the more important in the meanwhile. Anyway, let's move on. I want to show you this because it's absolutely insane. Donald Trump admires Kim Jong-un because Kim Jong-un is admired by his people. Well, I don't know if it's admired, but feared by his people. And Donald Trump would love to have something like this. So I want to show you this scene here that shocked James O'Brien.
What we didn't have was you. We didn't have a commander-in-chief who backed the blue, who resourced the blue, who funded the military, who did whatever it takes to safeguard every single life. And here in Memphis, Tennessee, you have put on a show for the world. You have allowed us to go out there and capture gangbangers, rapists, murderers, drug dealers at record historic levels.
Oh boy. So we have a little listen to just how impressive a character this man that Kash Patel is talking about truly is.
What about the Strait of Hormuz? Who's going to be in control of that?
That'll be opened very soon if this works.
How soon? And who's in control of it? Will Iran still be able to control the flow of oil?
Be jointly controlled.
By who?
Maybe me. Maybe me.
You want the United States to be in
Me
control
and the Ayatollah, whoever the Ayatollah is.
That's the President of the United States of America trying to cover up the fact that he was lying through his teeth yesterday about negotiations with Iran that haven't even taken place, but which he was forced to resile from because Iran didn't respond to the deadline he set for them to reopen the Strait of Hormuz that is not yet reopened. How on earth did this happen? Or how can we be confident that the negotiations he claimed yesterday had taken place haven't taken place at all?
In all fairness, everybody's been killed from the regime. They're really...
So he wanted to have negotiations with the regime, but he couldn't because they were all dead. Well, according to him, okay, we don't know whether they're all dead, but according to Donald Trump, yeah, we killed them all. That's why we couldn't have had we had wonderful negotiations, brilliant negotiations. How are they going? Well, actually, they're not going so well because they're all dead.
starting off. There's automatically a regime change, but we're dealing with some people that I find to be very reasonable, very solid.
So yesterday he was conducting high-level negotiations, and today he's killed all the people that he could have been conducting high-level negotiations with. But one thing upon which we can all agree.
You know, our country now is respected all over the world. A year and a half ago, we were a laughingstock.
So let's just be clear on that. America and Donald Trump are no longer a laughingstock.
What idea was that to put ice in the airport?
We're dealing really...
Whose idea was it?
Mine. That was mine.
And can I ask you
That was like the paperclip. You know the story of the paperclip? 182 years ago, a man discovered the paperclip. It was so simple. And everybody that looked at it say, why didn't I think of that?
And that is the world today.
What the heck has the paperclip got to do with ICE at the airports. It seems that Donald Trump has also decided, let's put ICE at the airports for some reason, to intimidate people coming in, to intimidate tourists. This is going to work really well for, is it this year or is it next year when there's a sporting event? I don't remember if it's this year or next year, but it's going to work out really well, isn't it? It's going to convince a lot of people to visit the United States. Yeah, visit the United States and you might get arrested and sent to El Salvador without a lawyer, of course. I just turned back in. So I just tuned back in while it was the most powerful man. I was talking about a paperclip. I don't know. Why is he talking about a paperclip? We will never know. Oh my goodness. You know, Trump always talks about how we were a laughingstock when Joe Biden was in charge. I don't remember many people laughing at Joe Biden. There was a bit of cringe, but that was about it. Okay. A lot of people were angry with Joe Biden or for example, what was happening in Gaza. But I don't think many people were laughing at Joe Biden. But then I guess we won't be laughing for very much longer because of Donald Trump, because there'll be nothing to laugh at. It's a sort of nervous laughter that we have with Donald Trump. Anyway, guys, let's move on. So as I mentioned earlier in the stream, the issue of AI is going to create a lot of problems when it comes to jobs. And that's why we need to have an alternative. So here is the CEO of Anthropic, which is one of the big AI companies. And have a listen to what he had to say here about, for example, entry-level jobs.
Just to back up a bit, I've been working on AI for 10 years, and probably the thing I've noticed most about it is how fast it's making progress. 2 years ago, it was at the level of a smart high school student. Now it's probably at the level of a smart college student and reaching beyond that. And on one hand, I think there's a number of very positive things that are going to happen. I used to be a biologist. I think AI has exactly the kind of skills that are needed to cure important diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's, to provide cheaper energy, many positive things. But exactly those same kind of skills, things like summarizing a document, brainstorming, putting together a financial report, makes me worry a lot that entry-level jobs in areas like finance, consulting, tech, many other areas like that, entry-level white-collar work, I worry that those things are going to be first augmented, but before long replaced by AI systems, and that we may indeed. It's hard to predict the future, but we may indeed have a serious employment crisis on our hands.
And this was the plan all along. This is not a byproduct. This was the plan all along, to create AI systems that would replace workers. And then what the AI companies would do is they would sell these tools to companies. So companies would, instead of employing people, would buy these tools. You know, there was a time a long time in the past, I don't know if you guys remember, when you used to buy software. You'd buy it on a CD, you'd put it in your computer and you'd install it, and you'd have a number of licenses maybe, and you could put it on different computers. And then we moved to software as a service, where you would buy, remember, you'd buy software on a subscription, and then you pay every month or you pay every year for that. Well, that software is starting to go away. It's been replaced by these type of AI tools. These tools are able to do a lot of this work. Like, for example, so the guy is there talking about how a lot of these jobs are going to go. This is a new tool that just I don't know if you can see on the screen there. This video put up here by Claude, which is one of their new tools. It was dropped on the 23rd of March. Today is the 24th, so yesterday. It has 63.4 million views, this video. And it's just showing how... So what this tool does is it accesses your computer, and it can do pretty much everything that you say, okay, I want you to send a file. So what it'll do is it'll go into your browser, it'll download a file, edit the file, put in whatever information is necessary, close the file, save it, and send it to wherever you want to send it. It will do a lot of the work that you would normally do on your computer. It can do that now. Now, it's not 100% capable, but it's pretty close to that. And every day, it seems, Anthropic and OpenAI and other software companies, the AI companies, are releasing updates. They're releasing updates on an almost daily basis. There was a time when you'd have Windows 98 and then Windows 2000 and then Windows XP and then Windows whatever. And you had all these releases every few years. Well, it seems these companies are releasing stuff every freaking day. And they're no longer doing rollouts, campaigns or anything like this. They're just saying, yeah, we have a new update. And whatever software, whatever tool you're using is automatically updated. And they're getting better and better. And as was pointed out by Dario here, well, they're going to do people's jobs. At the moment, they're augmenting people's work. So if you're working and you're using these tools, you're getting more proficient, more productive. But eventually, they're going to do the jobs of entry-level workers and then managers. But the problem is we're not even considering that. Like the government is, what is the government talking about at the moment? Well, we need to get people off benefits and into jobs. Okay, and this is insane. It's insane because we're talking here about jobs being outsourced to AI. And at the same time, the government is saying what we need to do is get people off benefits and into jobs. What frigging jobs? What jobs? Honestly, there was a time when I think it was Rishi Sunak was telling people you need to learn to code. These tools can do the coding. You don't need to learn to code because the tools will actually write the code for you. You just say, I want this, and it will create the code for that. You don't actually need to learn one line of code. I'm going to call my computer Hal. Not a good idea. It didn't work out well for the last guy who did that. Max, be thankful that we came across WinFrame. That was a really shit show. I remember WinFrame, yes. I remember WinFrame, yes. I forgot all about that. How will the next generation get a job if the job is being replaced by the machine? The next generation will not be able to get a job. That's the problem. That's why I keep coming back to a UBI. But a UBI is just a stopgap. UBI is not going to be a long-term solution. Just think about it, guys. The AI companies, what they want to do is they want to sell these products to companies, any company that employs people who work with computers. And they're going to be able to sell these products to these companies and say, look, you don't need staff anymore. And think about it from a company's point of view. If you don't need staff, well, you don't need to worry about people taking time off sick. You don't need to worry about the taxes related to hiring staff. You don't need to worry about the costs, insurance, providing office space, all of these things. And you're going to get to a situation where you're going to have companies that will start out with an individual and a team of agents who are doing all the work. And these agents will be working 24/7. And they'll be buying credits, they'll be buying tokens from these AI companies to do the job. So the companies will be buying a subscription, in a sense, from the AI provider for the compute power to do the work. So you, instead of actually employing somebody, you pay OpenAI or Anthropic or someone, you pay them a fee every month or for amount of usage instead of employing someone. And imagine that you have a group of agents that you can, if you spend more money, you can have more agents. And these agents will work 24/7, 7 days a week. They'll never get tired. They'll never need a break. They don't need the cost related to having a person. And they'll do the job just as good as a person will. This is worrying because the problem here is, I keep coming back to this point. The problem is not the AI, in a sense. The problem is that we don't have a plan B. Because if you ask the governments, and it's not just the UK government, it's other governments as well, what is the solution here? They say, well, we need to force people off benefits and into work. That's our solution to all of this. Train people up. Train people up to do what? Because there won't be any jobs for people to do. Look, let me be clear. There won't be any tech-related jobs, any jobs related to using a computer. Of course, childcare bleeps. going crazy too. Very unpaid sector, very underpaid sector. So I'm not saying all jobs will disappear. I'm talking about jobs related to working in an office, stuff like that. But care jobs, being a plumber, electrician, those will last longer. I'm not saying that they'll definitely be replaced at some stage, but they're probably longer lasting than if you work in an office in front of a computer. Those jobs are going to go first. Because if you think about it from a company's point of view, it's cheaper to pay for a service than to employ a person. Because the person needs, an office, they need time off, they need breaks, they need holidays, they need insurance, they need a weekend, they need, they need the normal things of an employee needs. If you can get a machine to do it for the same price, even if you're paying the same price, you'd prefer the machine because the machine will always be there and it won't complain. AI will never replace a plumber or electrician. I'm not saying never. I wouldn't say never. I've seen a few videos of robots in China doing electrical work. It's fixing cables. It's a type of job that electricians do. But the type of electrician who comes around to your house because there's, a broken, a socket isn't working or something like that, that's not going to be really done by a robot at the moment, because I don't think they're capable of doing that, or working on a building site, because the environment doesn't suit the robot. But if you create an environment that suits the robot, then the robots can do the job, yes. So the type of the plumber who comes around to unblock your toilet, that's not going to be a robot anytime soon. But the problem with this is that the more people looking for a job as a plumber, well, it becomes, if more and more people train as plumbers, then it becomes cheaper to be a plumber, cheaper to hire a plumber, and then many people may give up being plumbers. That's the problem, because it doesn't pay, because there's just too many of them around. A smart home, yes, a smart home would be a way of avoiding plumbers and electricians in the medium term. But a lot of these jobs are going to go. But that's why it's important that we put pressure on governments to have a plan B. And a plan B, at least a minimal plan B, would be a UBI. I want to show you this. This was an interesting back and forth in relation to some of the negatives of AI. For example, deep fakes. And a Conservative MP was speaking to
I'm talking about democratic disruption
at Google about this. Let me just bring it back a bit. I don't know why the videos take so long to load. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go.
I'm talking about democratic disruption.
Democratic disruption from a video specifically?
Well, in my case, it was a video purporting to show me joining another party, which is a major change. I mean, it's a major disruptive democratic moment. Political disruption is about, it's not violative. I wasn't violated, but it is fundamentally disruptive to the democratic process. It would be the equivalent of me putting a video up saying that you have slammed your current employer as a irresponsible tech platform and you're going to join somebody else. We're all here today because we are very concerned, this House is concerned, at the disruptive effect of your platforms on democracy, on health information, on society.
Oh, as we speak, Max, just received an email from Scottish Power. I'm receiving £75 energy credit grant. Thank you, Rachel Reeves. Oh, that's great news. Well done. That fellow that looks like a melted Rod Stewart. Oh, sorry. Oh my goodness. Like a melted Rod Stewart will fix your leaky tap. He definitely will not, because he's in where is it, in the south of Spain, I think, at the moment.
And with the greatest respect, I don't think the answers you're giving reflect the tone of the urgency. So I want to ask very specifically about some areas and your policies, and then secondly, given the failure of your well-intended interventions to succeed, I'd like your advice on how we should advise the House to step up the urgency that the public want to see in protecting us. So we've heard about health, and we've seen a huge wave of very, very dangerous tech platform blind-eyeism to...
Charlie Turkey Teeth Smollett. Yes. Costed their F off.
Anti-vax and all sorts of other things. I want to ask about democracy. Can you each just clearly state whether you have a policy on protecting democracy from disruption? We see state actors, Russia and others, actively supporting a social media campaign. Can I ask each of you, do you have a policy to protect democratic integrity, or do you take the view that anything goes? Let's start with Zoe.
So we have policies about election ads which are aimed at ensuring that people are allowed to participate in free and fair elections.
Is that just during election time? Just during election time?
Oh, no, those policies are in place for all elections, all political...
My goodness, these politicians, sometimes it's embarrassing watching them attempt to grill people within the tech sector. It reminds me of, there was a Republican senator, I think, who was asking about, he was holding up his phone and he was like trying to grill, what's the name, Tim Cook from Apple. He was like, yeah, but your phone, when I search for something on Google, you know, I open search and I search for pictures of me. There are pictures of me on my phone. What are you going to do about that? And Tim Cook was like, but that's Google that runs on the iPhone. It's nothing to do with the iPhone. Yes, but your iPhone is showing pictures of me, you know, in some inappropriate way or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but it's nothing to do with me. Unfortunately, a lot of these politicians don't seem to understand the tech very well, and they haven't been informed.
Outside of elections, so let me be specific. I was deep-faked in the autumn, as you will know, and there's no redress. There is no, certainly with the platform I'll come to in a minute, there was no statement or principle that was a problem. They were focused, understandably, on child grooming. And so do you have a policy as a platform, not on just elections, but during the course of democracy, on serious disruption to democratic representation?
So the example that you're giving me wouldn't necessarily occur on a product like Google Search or Maps in terms of uploading that photo.
It would if somebody went to look for, I'm asking you whether you have a policy, if somebody, a state actor or an independent disruptor, posted something that fundamentally misrepresented the democratic process or a political party's views or an elected representative's views, would that be a problem for you? I mean, the answer...
But how would they know? You're sort of... I'm not here to defend Google or the tech companies, but you're asking something that you're saying... Do you have a policy to stop people from uploading images that are misrepresenting a politician? But we don't know why they would be doing that. Like, if they were doing it for fun, if they were doing it for satire, like, you can't expect them just to, well, okay, you know, we know who you are, and we know that you haven't defected to Reform UK or whatever, so we're going to remove that. Like, what you're expecting is impossible almost. I'm not here to defend the tech companies, but it shows a lack of understanding of, you know, what actually is going on.
Maybe no, but I'm keen
once
to know.
Again, there are serious issues that need to be dealt with, okay? And tech companies need to step up. What they need is a proper monitoring system. So when something is highlighted, that it is taken down, it's reviewed and it's taken down. That's what needs to happen. But to stop things from being uploaded in the first place, I think that's practically impossible. Feck Rachel Reeves bills up £332, £75 rebate. Bite me. Well, yeah, thanks, David. So if the bills actually went up 300 and they give you £75 rebate, yeah, it's not exactly winning, is it? Here's 50 quid, but I'm going to take 300 quid from your pocket. Is not exactly a benefit. Thanks, David. I didn't know about that, so I didn't know how much the bills were going up.
what your answer is.
I mean, it's definitely a problem. I think for that photo in particular, I don't know exactly which photo, but if it were also reported in a news article, for example, and someone were
Why is this conservative asking stupid questions? Well, it's his job to ask stupid questions. Look, what he's hinting at here is a serious issue. Okay, deepfakes is a serious issue, but you can't stop. Like, you can't expect Google to stop people from uploading deepfakes, because once again, it could have been satire. We don't know. It could have been somebody messing about. It could have been somebody making a joke. It could have been him himself uploading it as a publicity stunt. We don't know. So you couldn't expect Google to know the context and stop it from being uploaded. It's nonsense thinking.
Searching for, your name and fake photo, for example, I think it would be important to return an article that is debunking that photo as fake. And so for that reason, we wouldn't necessarily remove that photo from Google Images altogether, because you would still want to find...
I just want to be clear. If somebody went to look on Google to see the video misrepresenting me, would you take the view? No, we know because he said that's a misrepresentation, so we're not going to let this...
Because he said... These people are completely clueless. Yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to remove this video because he said it was wrong. What?
Search engine, take them to it.
If there's a particular video that someone is searching for, if someone's searching for, your name and video, etc., we would be automatically applying our ranking treatments so that higher quality information is showing in
what
search
protection
results.
Well said, Larry. If MPs want something to change, they have to change the law. You can't expect these people to do it themselves. But I shudder at the idea of these clueless MPs writing laws regulating this. Yes. Yeah, they are the ones who are responsible for the law. So the companies will operate within the law. The companies have not done anything illegal here. Once again, I think deepfake is a serious issue, and I've been a victim of it myself. But we'll leave that aside. But it's but on a serious note, it is something that needs to be dealt with. But you can't expect the tech companies to remove stuff before it's uploaded, in a sense. It doesn't make any sense. And they can't be responsible for whatever context it is.
Does your ranking provide to somebody who's got a piece of social media that is fundamentally, dangerously, either democratically dangerously or economically dangerously wrong, inaccurate, misleading, clearly, do you take the view that you'll respond if somebody comes to you, or do you proactively screen against disseminating that material?
But how can they screen against something if they don't know whether it's illegal or not? Like, they can't be reviewing everything. Do you know how many web pages there are on the internet? Do you know how many pieces of... Like, they would have to determine whether this was true or false. Like, they would have to review everything that was posted online, and then you want some sort of big brother that would... Well, you posted something that was not true about your neighbor. We believe it's not true, so we're going to block you from posting it.
On YouTube, for example, if the video were violative, we would proactively screen and remove based on our policies.
You said violative. I didn't say violative. I'm talking about democratic disruption.
Democratic disruption from a video specifically?
Well, in my case, it was a video purporting to show me joining another party, which is a major change. I mean, it's a major disruptive democratic moment.
We would...
okay, but then what would the normal procedure would be, you would report that video to Google, to YouTube, and then they would review it and they would take it down. Because they would have it would be highlighted to them, you would give them the reason why it was a problem, they would review it and they would take it down, and they would punish the person who had uploaded the video. That's the normal procedure. I think it's a reasonable procedure. What this guy seems to be expecting is that as soon as a video of him that's deepfaked is uploaded, Google will go, you can't be doing that because of, what's his name? I forget what his name is, Gordon something. No. You posted something about Gordon or this Tory MP. No, that's not good. We're removing it. We're not even going to show it to anyone. This is insane. Anyway, I'm not going to stick too long with this because it shows how politicians are completely disconnected from the tech world, which is complicated. I know more about it because I deal with it every day. But it reminds me when I'm trying to explain something to my dad or something like that, who's like, how did they get the pictures into the phone? It's like, it doesn't matter. It's too difficult to explain. So let's move on. I don't think it's a problem for anyone who's on the stream because you guys are already on the stream, so you know exactly how YouTube and stuff like that works. Anyway, let's move on. We're in good hands, aren't we? Anyway, moving on to something serious here. Why is the cost of rental property rising so much? So it says here, over 8 years and living in 5 different flats, only one thing in Ryan Hoey's life has been consistent. His rent keeps going up. In Belfast, rent prices are growing faster than any other UK city. It doesn't surprise me. I think I've seen it in places I've rented before. These rises have been extortionate in terms of the rate of the increase, he said. Belfast is not a city you'd expect to see a massive rise in rent costs, but that's happening. So you can see here the change in Antrim and Newton Abbey. In 2020, £559 per month. In 2025, an increase of 50%. 50%, that's insane. 57% in Ards and North Down. Belfast, 53%. Belfast, of course, being the most expensive city in Northern Ireland. But the average rent, or the rent here, £1,163. Remember, this is Belfast. You're not expecting it to be so high in Belfast. Max, I've got 43 Facebook pages. How can they police that? Yeah. Although when it comes to Facebook, well, I don't think they do any moderation anymore. So you can post whatever the hell you like. As long as it's not criticizing Trump, you're all right. Thanks, David. And the best of luck with those 43 pages. Incompetent MPs don't have the competence to draft laws. That's the preserve of the Parliament, the permanent government, aka the civil service. It's up to the Parliament to adopt the draft laws. Yes. Well said, Chatty. Because Belfast is in Ireland and the Irish people are moving north, unity is just a matter of time. Don't tell the British how much the 6 counties is costing. Yes. Ours and North Down were pronounced City Dean. City Dean. I can't keep up with it. I just keep going to dig dirt now. Don't mention the war. Or that bloke with the dodgy island. Yes. So that's insane. Rents across Northern Ireland have surged over the past 5 years in every council area with an average by an average of 51%. Property Pals Chief Executive Jonathan Buchanan shared his site's pricing and listings data over that period. The average property now costs an extra £335 per month. Have wages gone up £335 per month? I don't think so. In early 2020, the average rent in Northern Ireland was around £650. At the end of 2025, it had grown to nearly £1,000. It's crazy stuff.
So there's that certain pressure, I think, on renters these days, particularly if you need to find a place fairly quickly, to just sign up and pay whatever just to be able to ensure that you get somewhere, get a roof over your head. As someone who probably wants to get on the property ladder eventually, if you're paying more in rent, you're able to put less towards a deposit. Also then not only are rents going up, but the price of houses are going up, so it all just makes it more difficult. In some senses it's a positive in that people are moving to Belfast, which is causing this demand, and it is a place that is sort of on the up, but the supply of housing just isn't keeping pace with that demand.
Rental growth in Belfast for the last year has surpassed any other UK city. A lot of that is attributable to the imbalance between supply and demand. We've got a very sort of constrained supply side, a huge demand side, and we're seeing that both filtering its way into the market in terms of prices. I speak to agents on a regular basis, and we're hearing stories of 80 people applying for every rental that comes to the market. So, it's not sustainable in terms of the price dynamic for sure.
80 people applying for one house. That's insane. But what needs to happen is there needs to be more house building, and there's an opportunity for Northern Ireland to build more houses, create jobs, build affordable housing, and build also council houses. So that's what should be happening. But the Northern Ireland Assembly is more interested to talk about flags. Anyway, guys, let's move on to our next story. No, I want to. We're almost at the end, so no, I want to cover this story before we go.
As some of you will know, Advance UK has applied to be a registered political party in Northern Ireland. We're already a registered political party in Great Britain, but it requires...
Hey, what's wrong, Ben? Ben is buffering. These shorts are terrible. Whenever a load of short, it seems to break for some reason.
It's a separate process for Northern Ireland. I know, absolutely bizarre. How can we expect a strong United Kingdom if we have politics broken down the middle of the Irish Sea? Anyway, Advance UK...
Yes, because Northern Ireland has a long history of... My goodness, is he really this stupid? Does he not understand that Northern Ireland is a special case when it comes to politics? No, we should have exactly the same system as we have in the rest of the UK. Yeah, but you understand that Northern Ireland is a special case.
UK stands for the entirety of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And once we get that registration in Northern Ireland, we will be the only party that actually genuinely stands for the entire United Kingdom.
Do you know how many... votes this guy got, his party got in the Norton and Denton by-election? Can anyone guess how many votes he got? Well, maybe if you can't come up with the number, do you think his party got more or less than the Monster Raving Loony Party? Okay. They got less votes than the Monster Raving Loony Party in the Gorton and Denton by-election. 5 max. It got less, like the Monster Raving Loony Party got more votes than Ben Habib's party. That's interesting, isn't it? But his party's the only one who can is that not an embarrassment? Is that not enough of an embarrassment to go, okay, let's pack up and go home? You'd imagine he'd try and reach out to Nigel Farage and say, I'm sorry, Nigel, please take me back into the party. I was a bad boy. Please bring me back in. I'll promise to be a sycophant as I was before. Please do that. But no, Tommy Two Ribs. Oh my goodness. Benny the ball back. Can the votes be counted on one hand, Max? Something like that. I don't know, honestly, I think it was like 76, is it? 76 votes. Something like less than the Monster Raving Loony Party. Can you imagine losing to the Monster Raving Loony Party? Although I have to admit, no one has defected from the Monster Raving Loony Party to any other party, so at least they're consistent. Every other party has seen defections from their side to somebody else. So, what does it say about the Monster Raving Loony Party? Oh my goodness. And finally, one final story before we go. Hopefully this one isn't too scary. A sort of a serious one before we finish, but it's about energy prices.
This is insane. And the current
why are these things so loud? Let me bring down the volume a bit.
estimate of electricity use in America is that 10% of the electricity in the United States will be used in the data centers. And these data centers are of 400 megawatts. These things are plus or minus, and they're about a half a mile long and about 500 feet wide, right? And they're essentially airflow machines. Take the air, send the air out, cool it in the middle using typically air cooling, and then they have a water system inside to keep the chips. Using NVIDIA as an example, the chips are water cooled, and also the HBM3E and now the 4 memories put out so much heat that they have to be water cooled. The chips are 2 kilowatts. I mean, this is insane. These things will kill you. This is insane. And the current...
And he's right. This is insane. Like, why is... So we're moving to a situation where these data centers are consuming huge amounts of energy. The issue of water is not so... It's been a bit amplified. But the energy is the real issue here. And this, of course, is going to drive up the cost of energy. Everywhere that receives a new data center, and there has been a lot of pushback against these data centers. Now, the response from the AI companies is, well, if we don't build the data centers, China will, and they're going to win the race. And then China is going to decide the future of the world. So we need to have our data centers here. And it seems Elon Musk wants to build data centers in space. Okay. Maybe I shouldn't laugh. It could be a viable solution. There are huge costs related to sending data centers into space, as you can imagine. But it's cheaper to cool them. It's cheaper to power them because you have them, facing the sun all the time when they're in space. So you're able to, it's difficult to disperse the heat, but if you use radiators, you can disperse the heat. But you're not taking up space. There's almost infinite space in space. So this could be a way forward. But we need to do something like this because we can't have these data centers consuming more and more and more energy. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. So I want to say thank you to everyone who sent a super chat. Greatly appreciated. Thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks for smashing the like button. I'll be on Friday again at the same bat time, same bat channel. Don't go yet because we have our one for the road. And thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job as always. But I hope you enjoy this before we go. Let me get off the screen. There we go.
For the first time ever, I'm sharing everything I know about robbing. And that's a lot. I'm Michael Hatchet McGrath. I have done 2 3-year sentences in high security prisons. And this is me masterclass in crime. In these next 3 hours, I will teach you everything that I have learned about crime, the mistakes I made that got me caught, and how you can avoid them. Learn how I managed to smuggle over 10 kgs of cannabis through Dublin Airport just this year. Could you actually cut that last bit out? If you don't like the idea of prison, but are still interested in criminality, why not consider white-collar crime?
Hi, I'm Fintan McNamara, and despite defrauding the Irish taxpayer of over €7 billion, I never spent a day in prison. With new clients, introductions are key.
Give me all your money or I'll break your face.
This is a great opportunity. You really need to take advantage of this.
We will cover useful phrases such as, are you charging me with anything? If you had anything on me, you wouldn't be just talking to me. And get your fucking hands off me. Crime is creative. It's problem solving. Sure, I could buy this nice new phone, or I could blast by a bus stop and grab it out of some L1's hand. In these next 3 hours, we will explore the full range of criminal activity. Everything from bank heists, to bus fare evasion, to fleecing the pick and mix in the cinema. For only $5.99 a class, it's a steal. I've shown you how to do it. Now, it's your turn.
He just drove off. He only did 10 minutes. I paid €300 for this. We've been robbed.
Doomda. So guys, have a great week. I will see you on Friday, same bat time, same bat channel. Stay safe, take care, and good night.